Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Lee Duckworth. When I was younger, I used to believe success was about being the loudest in the room, the one with the most attention, the biggest ideas, the sharpest opinions. But as I began to study human behavior, achievement, and resilience, I noticed something very different. The people who truly moved mountains, who built something lasting, weren't the noisiest, they were the most focused. The ones who directed their energy inward quietly, relentlessly. They weren't distracted by competition. They didn't chase applause. They built discipline like a muscle. They understood something powerful, that progress doesn't require permission. It requires focus. Today, I want to share a truth that changed my life. When you focus only on yourself and stay silent, you unlock the kind of power that doesn't shout, but speaks volumes in what it creates. In a world where noise often wins attention, silence has become underestimated. We're conditioned to equate visibility with success, to believe that the louder we are, the more we matter. But silence, when it's intentional, is not passivity. It is not weakness. It is a conscious strategy for growth. People who stay silent aren't always quiet because they have nothing to say. They're quiet because they're saying more through their actions. Think about it. Every moment you spend justifying yourself, explaining your worth, or reacting to negativity is energy lost. But when you choose silence, you conserve that energy, redirecting it inward where it can actually fuel transformation. Silence also builds emotional discipline. It teaches you to pause before reacting. In that pause, there is power. The power to choose clarity over chaos, peace over conflict. When you don't respond to distractions, to provocation, or even to praise, you begin to train your mind to stay centered. That centeredness is what leads to mastery, because the truth is, real progress rarely happens out loud. The breakthroughs, the hard decisions, the personal reinventions, those happen quietly when no one's watching. This strategy also creates an element of unpredictability. When people don't know your next move, they can't interfere with it. When you stay silent about your goals, you reduce pressure and avoid external judgment. You stop performing for the world and start evolving for yourself. You give yourself room to make mistakes, to iterate, to grow in the shadows before you step into the light. That kind of growth is sustainable because it's real. And finally, silence builds strength. It's easy to defend yourself when someone doubts you. It's easy to react when someone challenges you. What's hard is choosing to do nothing, not because you're afraid, but because you're focused. Your silence becomes a message. I don't need to prove anything. I'm working. That mindset turns you into a force, because while others are busy making noise, you're busy making moves. You're not wasting your time being seen. You're investing your time in becoming someone worth seeing. That's the shift. That's the strategy. That's the power of silence when you choose it, not as an escape, but as an intentional tool for inner alignment and outward progress. We live in a time where comparison is constant. Every scroll, every conversation, every moment online or in person seems to invite us to measure ourselves against someone else. Who's doing better? Who's more successful? Who's happier, richer, smarter? But the truth is, when you constantly compare your progress to others, you give away your power. Obsession with others leads to distraction, insecurity, and burnout. On the other hand, obsession with self. Growth leads to clarity, momentum, and mastery. The most powerful shift you can make is turning your attention inward. Not because the world outside doesn't matter, but because nothing outside you will matter until what's inside is solid. Self-growth isn't about perfection. It's about progress, and when you commit to obsessing over your own development, your focus becomes sharper. You stop chasing someone else's version of success and start building your own. Every hour spent watching someone else's path is an hour lost on your own. The people who achieve meaningful growth aren't the ones who keep up with everyone. They're the ones who outgrow their former selves day by day. They ask hard questions. What am I avoiding? What needs to change? How can I become a little better today than I was yesterday? That level of self-honesty requires courage and obsession. You have to care more about your evolution than about anyone else's opinion. When your energy is directed toward yourself, your discipline deepens. You no longer work for applause. You work for alignment. You're not motivated by being noticed. You're driven by becoming undeniable. And the amazing thing is, the more you focus on your own growth, the less you feel the need to compare. You realize that someone else's success isn't a threat. It's just evidence that growth is possible. But your job isn't to compete. Your job is to become. And becoming takes time, attention, and an unshakable commitment to the process. Obsession with self-growth also builds resilience. When you're fixated on what's in your control, your habits, your mindset, your actions, you become less reactive to things outside your control. You stop blaming circumstances or people. You take ownership. You become solution-oriented instead of problem-focused, and that mental shift changes everything. You start attracting better opportunities because you're operating at a higher frequency. See, not because you're lucky, but because you've been working in silence, preparing for the moment before it arrives. Ultimately, obsessing over self-growth means trusting that your journey matters, even when no one sees it. It means falling in love with your progress, no matter how slow. It means knowing that growth doesn't need to be broadcast to be real. And it means realizing that the most valuable competition is not with others, it's with who you used to be. When that becomes your obsession, you start to win in a way that comparison could never offer. Because instead of trying to beat others, you begin to build yourself, and that's the kind of success that lasts.